Hello, and welcome back to Speducation. I am your host, Brandon Reed, and today we're going to be talking about some more topics related to case conferences, in particular, the NCC. So, without further ado, let's dive into today's lesson. Today's lesson, what is a NCC? Well, if you watch my previous video, or if you didn't see my previous video, we talked about acronyms. And an acronym is basically letters that are taken from words or phrases to shorten the meaning of them. So basically, it allows you to save time and space in documents. And in special education and also in medicine, there are a lot of acronyms. NCC, for example, is an acronym for Notice of Case Conference. So what is a notice of case conference? Well, let's talk about that. A notice of case conference is the document that is sent out to the parent prior to an IEP meeting. The notice of case conference is typically a one-page document that lists the following: the date, time, and location of the meeting, the purpose of the meeting, the participants in the meeting, and this could include administration, because typically there is a PAR, a public agency representative, and this individual is an administrator. It could be a principal, an assistant principal, it could be the dean of students, it could also be a counselor depending on what their title is within the school. But then you would also have the teacher of record or the special ed teacher, and then also the teacher of service. If there's an occupational therapist, or if there's a blind low vision teacher, or some other teacher that isn't necessarily the teacher of record, but still services the child. And then you also have the general ed teacher. Then the guardian information, the consent to excuse. This is for any participant that may need to leave for part or all of the meeting. Typically, this is relegated to the general ed teacher, because general ed teachers don't need to be there for the entire meeting. Typically, what happens is when they come to the meeting, they'll talk a little bit about how the student is doing in class, talk about their grade, talk about any concerns that they or the other teachers may have. They also talk about the strengths of the student, and then they answer questions that the parents may have. And then after that, if the parent is okay with excusing the teacher, then they're allowed to go back to their classroom. However, that consent to excuse has to be signed by the parent, either prior or at the meeting itself. And then the acknowledgement of the meeting and your decision on how to proceed. Basically, what this is that if a parent is not able to be there in person, then there are boxes that they would check on the notice of case conference. For example, one box says, I plan to attend. The second box says that I plan to attend, but I would prefer to do it by either phone or by Google Meet or Zoom. And then there's another box that says, go ahead and have the meeting without me. Or another box says, could we please reschedule the meeting? So the acknowledgement of the meeting basically means that the parent is checking one of those boxes and then signing it to inform the school and the teacher of when they will be able to meet. When the notice of case conference gets sent out, there's no real area where there's no real guaranteed timeline. It really depends on the state and the school. Now, a general good rule of thumb is that when the notice of case conference is sent out, it's typically sent out 3 days before the actual meeting. That way it gives the parents time to plan accordingly and reschedule if they need to. The latest that a notice of case conference can be sent out is 24 hours in advance. Now, as for me, I generally like to send those out at least 3 days beforehand, along with the draft IEP, so that parents can review it, write down any questions or comments that they may have, so that when we actually meet, they can bring those to my attention. But what does federal law say about this? Federal law under IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, states the following. IDEA's provisions regarding parent participation state, each public agency must take steps to ensure that one or both of the parents of a child with a disability are present at each IEP team meeting or are afforded the opportunity to participate. This includes notifying parents of the meeting early enough to ensure that they will have an opportunity to attend, and scheduling the meeting at a mutually agreed on time and place. Notice how it says notifying parents of the meeting early enough. It doesn't specify an exact day or time. And the reason for this is because it's left up to the state and schools to determine the timelines for those. So what else goes out with a notice of case conference? Well, the draft IEP, typically the proposed IEP that the parents can kind of get a preview of before the actual meeting, but then also the procedural safeguards. Now, you've probably heard that before, and you're probably wondering, well, what are procedural safeguards? Well, that's actually what we're going to be talking about next week, procedural safeguards. And if you liked what you saw today, please click the like button. And if you want updates on future videos, feel free to click the subscribe button and ring the bell for updates on future videos. And as always, if you have questions, feel free to post those in the comments. And please make sure to share this channel with others. And until next time, class dismissed.